Tuesday. Nice to have you with us for the legal show on Mansfield Today. I'm Jeremy Mansfield, and I'm joined as usual by our resident advocate, Lance Brogden. Lance, it's not really a topic that you want to bring up, but it's coming up so often. I think as a result of COVID as well, there's been a fairly high rise in the divorce rate in South Africa. And it's a sad topic to have to deal with, but it is the reality. And so we've got to face up to things. What is happening in the divorce arena in South Africa at the moment?
Jeremy, perhaps I should be asking you, as a well-experienced man in the field in this, or a couple of other mates. No, on a very serious note, it is an unfair topic that you want to bring across the table, but it is real. And I agree with you, Jeremy. I think, particularly in the period of COVID, and what came with COVID is financial distress, individuals losing their employment, and it puts massive strain on people, especially in instances where they already had a marriage that's quite brittle. I think just in clarity for today, we're going to focus on traditional, on the marriages that we're accustomed to. In other words, we're not talking about what some people call a common law marriage or living together as man and wife. By the way, we don't have common law marriage. That's another story for another day. Or universal partnership. This is when people get married, either in the church or at the court, and then the marriage comes to dissolution. But it is real. We are seeing it accelerating. My colleagues out there are seeing that, unfortunately, this is a big thing today. And we're covering it, not to be cynical, but to see if we can help.
Why are divorce proceedings generally A, so lengthy, and B, so expensive? Well, I suppose the expense comes with the length of time. Why are they so lengthy?
I think, firstly, both parties tend to believe that they are right, they have been hard done by, and no matter what the issues are that brought up the dissolution or the breakdown of the marriage. And unfortunately, why it becomes so costly, besides the anger and the emotion and everything goes with it, Jeremy, if you don't settle it early and quickly, and I'll say something right now, often the first offer is the best offer. Okay, it's just a reality, and we get on with it. But if we don't, it gets drawn out. You have two sets of attorneys, you have two sets of counsel. It's an expensive exercise, and and it's painful and unnecessary. Then there's a time draw. It's not a case saying we're happy to get divorced, and then all of a sudden we start fighting and arguing and carry on, and then there's mediation, and there's pre-trial, and there's discovery, and then eventually it's still opposed, we couldn't settle it, and now we're looking forward to find a date. I can give you 2 years, and I'd be optimistic. So that's where the costs add up, and the time adds up, and so painful.
You were saying earlier that in most cases, both parties feel like they've been wronged in some way. There's the truth. There's your truth, the other person's truth, and then
the truth.
The truth. Yeah. But does it make a difference if one party is at fault?
No, and correctly so. Everybody feels hard done by for whatever reason. But we have a non-fault divorce system, and I put on the table now. Sadly, if you're watching this now and you're in a situation where there's a potential divorce coming up, it doesn't help to say that the other person is this, was that, did this. Nobody cares. Okay. At the end of the days, your marriage is irretrievably breaking down. And first prize, we hope we can put something together to try and rescue the marriage. If not, it's something that should be handled professionally and maturely without pointing fingers, because it doesn't bring up value. And I'm not talking about cases where one party, there's been heavy substance abuse and that you don't want your children to see them, or internal family violence, all the things that we all stand strongly against and don't accept. Those issues do come up, but that's not about the fault of the divorce. The divorce, we have a non-fault system, the marriage irretrievably breaks down for whatever reasons.
What's the importance of we said we would stick with the for want of a better word, traditional marriages here. What is the importance of the antenuptial contract during the marriage and in the divorce arenas?
Yeah, quickly and swiftly, the antenuptial contract or prenup, the contract you go into with your future spouse before getting married is the source document for divorce. It's not for the marriage. It's a document that's there that should sadly the relationship fall apart, you have a source document to look at that explains how the estate should be carved up, broken down, etc. It doesn't. So it's about the financial side of it. The other side is about children, access, maintenance, all that. So that comes out later during the divorce proceeding. But it is a source document that you must have in place and think through carefully. And a word, especially for you younger people out there, I know you think you're going to be in love and lust forever, and I hope you are. Good luck. But do this seriously. Write this document up front as if you are about to part ways. It is painful to say it, and nobody wants to, but I'm telling you, do it.
You mentioned children, yeah. What about the role, because they also have a role to play in the family unit, what about the role of grandparents when it comes to something like this?
Jim, this is something very special and a bit out of my league. So I think if we could ask the studio to go across to a well-seasoned attorney and a specialist in family law and law of persons, Dolph Bass, I think can we go through to him?
Dolph, nice to have you with us on Mansfield today. I'm going to leave this part up to my learned friend here because I'm totally out of depth on this particular one.
Dolphy, we've handled a few matters together, and it's come to the fore quite recently that in the wider family unit, myself as a grandparent, my child is getting divorced, but I have grandchildren as well. Where do I as a grandparent stand? Do I have any locus standi to have any influence whatsoever?
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Jeremy. Yes, this is a tricky one, and it can be very emotional, and it can be very complex. The first and most important principle that we must remember is that we must always act in the best interest of the minor children. And legislation, and most importantly, the Children's Act and case law are very clear on this. And what does this mean? This means that we must provide love and care and nurturing for the minor children in a stable environment so that at the end of the day we can have a happy child and a child. And it is vital that the grandparents play a role in this, and it is in the best interest of the minor children that the grandparents play this role. They have a very important nurturing and loving role. Okay, so what do you do if you hear your child is unfortunately and sadly going through a divorce? The first thing that you must do is ask for a discussion as soon as possible, and if possible also with the other parent. And remember, this now becomes a scenario of compromises. Like you've mentioned earlier, there's no win-win. Everybody must try and act reasonably to act in the interest of the minor children. And you must tell them that you would like to play a role going forward, and that you think that it is in the interest of the minor children that you play a role. When parties get divorced and there are minor children involved, you have to conclude something that's called a parenting plan. And the provisions of this parenting plan will form part of the final decree of divorce. And these terms are enforceable. So if you don't comply with the terms, they can be enforced by a court of law. So it's important that at this process already, the grandparents' rights are looked after. And what does this mean? These are issues like primary residence. Where does the children stay? It's normally with the mother. And things like contact rights. When can the father see the children? And that's normally alternate weekends, public holidays, Father's Day, Mother's Day, and birthdays. So when these things are being sorted out, it's important that you have the discussion, where will the grandparents fit into this thing. In my experience, I find that a midweek clause is very important. For instance, Wednesday, that the parent or the grandparents can collect the children from school, and then they can spend a couple of hours with grandparents. When they're a bit older, they can even sleep over, and the kids can then be dropped off at school. Uh, and then the grandparents of the father and the mother, they can alternate on this basis, and that makes it quite fair and reasonable. Okay, then as you mentioned, there can be instances where the matter is acrimonious and there's boxing involved. And unfortunately, when people get divorced, sometimes they are very angry, they are very hurt, and they will use the children as tools to hurt the other party and to hurt the grandparent. And that is sad, but that is unfortunately what happens. In that instance, my advice would be to seek the advice of a family lawyer who will take you through the necessary steps to enforce your rights. There are various remedies, and there's not time now to go into it in detail. In the serious matters, you'll get a family advocate's report or a specialist report from a social worker, and you will apply for a high court order where, again, a court will look at the best interest of the child, the relationship between the grandparent and the child, the degree of commitment that the grandparent had shown towards the child, the extent to which the grandparents had contributed, and any other factor a court might deem relevant. In short, that is a summary of the situation.
Dolph, thank you very much, Dolph. Thank you for joining us on Mansfield today. It's attorney Dolph Base. Let's wrap it up here. Lance, any practical pointers for spouses when this whole process is going on?
A couple of quick pointers in closure. One, try and mediate it. Try and get a mutual party that you both trust or don't know at all to sit and go through it with you as the two parties, and find common ground and sort it out as quick as possible. Secondly, I thought, I put this on the table, it's great if you can work with one legal team together. It saves you a fortune. You could probably get away with 8 or 10,000 done through court and over and done with, as opposed to hundreds of thousands. However, another thought, if your marriage, and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a marriage counselor, but my experience tells me if you're battling, if things aren't going the way they should, and you think you're falling out of love, go and write down agree on it, and maybe even sign it. Say, were we to get divorced, this is what it would look like. This is where the money would go, this is where the house would go, this would be the result if we look at our A and C, and this is what would happen to the children. Write it down so that one of the parties want to take it up further later, they can. At the same time, try and make your marriage work and say, here are a few ground rules. But when you look at this document that you've now prepared and you see what it entails, it might make you think twice about quickly just jumping out of a marriage. Finally, tell your attorney the truth, whether there's two of you with one attorney firm or attorney, or whether you each with your own. Don't leave anything out. Don't think you're going to get a cheaper bill by leaving out where some of the assets are, or don't think that you are going to get more favor from your legal advisor because you make yourself out to be the perfect model and the other person to be an inappropriate spouse. Please put it all on the table. Try and do it with one person, but try and save your marriage. These are valuable things. Not easy. Most of you out there, I'll tell you right now, 3 out of 5 have been through this. Okay, try and save it if you can. If not, try and at least save the money. Don't break each other down further financially.
Thank you very much for your advice. Thank you for your pointers. Advocate Lance Brogden, who is our resident legal eagle on Mansfield today. It's been great to have you with us. We'll catch you next time around. Bye-bye.